All right, guys. Thank you for joining for today's resume review session. We have a special guest today, Brian Ross. Brian, welcome to our club. Happy to see you again.
Honored to be here, Yevgeny. Thank you for having me.
I know Brian since 2017, I believe. He was the first guy I've met at Verifi Visa. I used to work there. Brian is a senior manager, talent acquisition. At that time, you was a manager, right?
I don't even know. At that time, I think I was a manager. I was still senior, I'll put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. But what I can tell, we developed a pretty awesome and great relationship throughout this time. I'm very happy to see you, Brian, with us. Brian, I know you are one of the most nicest guy that I know. You've done onboarding with me. Yeah, so that was, and also I was rehired at Visa back then. And again, like Brian was all the way through with that process as well. So I know Brian like pretty good at that moment.
We go way back, Yevgeny. We go way back.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time. Brian, he is still at Visa, at Verifi. He volunteered to participate in a resume review. We want to hear, Brian, from your side, like your opinion about the resumes, especially like you're the, not necessarily at this moment, but definitely you spend a lot watching the resumes, reviewing the resumes, and you was probably the gatekeeper between hiring managers and candidates, and you and your team, obviously, right? I know that you right now as a senior manager and you overview like how your talent acquisition team, they do the first touch, the first vetting process.
And I still do recruit, Yevgeny, so I am that player coach. So I still get to see my fair share of resumes. So
Totally. Yeah. But before we're gonna start, maybe Brian, tell us a little bit about your journey to Visa Verifi and your experience overall, because I know you've been in recruiting more than 10 years, and you've been also at the external recruiting agencies, right? You have this experience, and now you've been working at Verifi Visa for quite a while.
Yeah.
And also would be interesting to know the difference between the processes between internal and external recruiting processes. Maybe you can share some tips and hints.
For sure. Yeah, I'd love to shed some light on that, but I'll start a little bit with my background. I won't talk too much about what I was doing before recruiting, but I will say I got my master's degree from USC and actually social work. Did that for about 5-6 years and then pivoted into the recruiting industry, starting out in an agency. Folks might know the agency. At the time, it was WorkBridge, JobSpring. Now it's Motion Recruitment Partners. So I'm sure some of y'all have heard of them. Hopefully it's a positive experience, but we all know sometimes it doesn't always go that way. So I get it if not. But yeah, so I did agency recruiting probably for about altogether a little bit over four years. Three of it was focused on recruiting for, funny enough, infrastructure and software test engineers was our specialty. And then when I moved to my next agency, which was a very short stint, that was just across the board tech wise. And then I decided the agency life was just not, wasn't really where I wanted to be. Luckily, I got a contract role over at this company called Verifi doing they were a company handling payment disputes and chargebacks, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't know anything about. Had no clue what a chargeback was. And funny enough, and this is a quick side note, after 3 years of working there, I finally figured out what Verifi did. It took a little while, but I eventually got there. But started out as a contractor, just recruiting chargeback, PD ops, chargeback operations specialist. My contract ended. They 2 weeks later brought me back because somebody had decided to leave. So I feel like it's safe. I don't normally assume things, but I feel like it's safe to assume I did a good job because they called me back. And that's when I really started owning, I shouldn't say owning, but that's when I started recruiting for positions across the company. Technical, non-technical, whatever it was, they gave it to me and I worked to get those positions filled. And then eventually, as I in my career at Verifi, now Visa, moved more towards like product and non-technical, and actually was able to hire some folks on the team who solely focused on the technical, but I still coach them on how to fill those types of roles because there is a little bit of a different strategy in recruiting for technical versus non-technical role. In 2008, when I actually became a manager and actually ran the team, and not too long ago was promoted into a senior manager role, still owning the recruiting for Verifi, but now we call it Verifi Business Unit because in 2019, not to confuse everybody with more dates, we were acquired by Visa. So we've been under the Visa umbrella since 2019 and had the opportunity to actually recruit for the crypto product team a little bit too at Visa, which was cool to get some experience and understanding within the crypto world and blockchain technologies and things like that. So I was able to learn about that. But yeah, I wanted to touch on, Yevgeny, what you mentioned just about the difference between agency and internal recruiting. And to be honest, there's not too much of a difference. Funny enough, right? Really, the only differences is where your job orders are coming from, right? You don't have to do that business development piece, right? Because you work, but working with the hiring managers is still the same, right? No matter if you're agency or internal, hiring managers are hiring managers. They want what they want, and you need to work with them and partner with them, right? They need to see you as a business partner. And the way that I see myself is I think of myself as those Sherpas that guide people up to Mount. Like
Right.
I see myself as their Sherpa, right? I'm their guide through this process. And I feel the same way with the candidates, right? That I talk to. Like I'm going to be their guide and help guide them through the interview process, right? Whether it ends up in us hiring them or if it ends up with us not hiring them. But some of my philosophy, and again, please, Evgeny, stop me if I'm going too long, but my philosophy is communication on both sides, right? Internally with the folks that I partner with and my stakeholders, right? And the candidates. I'm a big believer in making sure you're communicating, even to the point where if there is no update, that is the update. And I will communicate that, right? Last thing I want is for people to sit there and wonder, where do they stand? Because I've been a candidate. I know what that feels like. It's not a good feeling. It's better to know where you stand than where you don't stand. So I really take that more of and this is probably my social work background, right? The empathy piece of saying, if I were in their shoes, what would I want? And so that's my approach. I just come from that approach of, if I were a candidate, what would I want? I would want the recruiter to communicate to me. I would want the recruiter to provide me with any feedback they're able to provide me and close the loop with me. So I really pride myself on making sure that I'm doing those things. And I think Yevgeny can attest to that, having been a candidate that I worked with, and obviously somebody who we've partnered with too on the agency side before also. So it's interesting that you and I have worked in those different capacities.
Yeah,
Evolved.
yeah. We had both, right?
Yeah.
And then our relationship evolved. Now we're working in different domain, but the most interesting part, Brian, and I want to touch this also about the networking. What do you think the best approach would be from the candidates with the networking through the LinkedIn, maybe email,
Yeah.
or by any means, right? But before going there, I remember myself that I messaged you in LinkedIn when I applied through, at that time, like it was 2017, I believe. I applied through Building LA, I believe. And I messaged you in LinkedIn, hey, my name is Evgeny, I applied, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just in case if you, very short message, but
Yeah.
like nothing. And you get back to me like,
Yeah.
oh, you get back to me on that message and then scheduled the interview. And that was one of the and greatest experience through the hiring processes.
Yeah.
What is your input? What do you think would be the best approach with a networking?
I definitely think you hit the nail on the head. I think the most important thing is before you start that networking piece, I think it's important, like you did, right? You applied for the position. So I had a point of reference to go to after you messaged me. So I think there is an aspect of it to make sure you're being very purposeful in how you're networking and purposeful in how you're messaging folks, right? I definitely recommend doing it the way that you did it, Yevgeny. Like, apply for the position, because when you applied for that position, I could say, okay, he reached out to me, he applied. Let me go quickly look at his profile in our applicant tracking system. And lo and behold, I was like, great, this looks to be what we're looking for. And again, but I'll be very honest, that doesn't always happen, right? Because there might be times where somebody might message me and I'll go and I'll look but I will look real quick and see, okay, hey, are they meeting that criteria? And then I'll get back to them on the message and basically let them know, hey, you don't quite fit what we're looking for. And I'll give them the reasons why. Now, whether they agree with me or not, that's another story, right?
Yeah, it's another story.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, and that's probably a whole nother meeting topic that we could address. And so we won't necessarily need to go there on that. But like I said, I really try my best to get back to everyone that messages me. But the advice that I would give is be purposeful in how you're doing this. Make sure, like, for example, you're purposeful in your message, basically, and nothing long, right? Like you said, Yevgeny, I think I remember it was pretty sweet and short and to the point of, hey, I applied for this software test engineering role. Just wanted to let you know, check out my profile or check out my application and let me know what you think, right? Yeah. If you have time, please let me know what you think. So I think it's just going to be really and targeted, right? Obviously, you targeted me as the recruiter, which was great. Y'all can try to network and send these messages to to who you think might be the hiring manager, or network with those folks. But I'll be very honest, chances are, like Yevgeny said, it's going to be the recruiter that's going to be that first touch on your application. So probably best to start there, unless you know people at the company, right? Which is another story, right? If you know people at the company, definitely reach out to them and see if they can refer you, right? Referrals are a great way to get in. And there's warm referrals, there's cold referrals, right? And the difference between those, warm meaning like you actually know someone at the company and then they referred you, versus you just reached out. I'll just use an example. You reached out to another software test engineer. Hey, saw that y'all were hiring, wanted to network with you. Would you pass my information along to the recruiter? I've had that happen too. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, how do you know this person? And they'll say, I don't really know them. They reached out to me on LinkedIn, and then I'll know then, okay, it's not a warm referral, it's more of a colder referral where they don't know this person. They're passing them along to me, and then I'll pick it up from there. But again, going back to the main point, I think be purposeful in who you're messaging and how you're messaging them, and make sure you're targeting the right people.
Awesome. Awesome. And again, I want to reiterate what you said about please do not argue with recruiters. Oh, no, you don't understand. I should be fit. There is a reasons, probably. And not always you. Please don't argue. Don't argue.
Yeah, listen, look, I'm open to hearing your case, but in all honesty, you have to trust that the recruiter met with the hiring manager, did a meeting with them, took extensive notes, right? And I'm not saying every recruiter does this, because I can't speak for every recruiter. I can speak for myself and my team, because I train my team to be this way too. But gets those requirements from the hiring manager, the must-haves, right? The things that are non-negotiable. This is the experience and the skills we need this person to bring to the table.
Right. Brian, I remember actually, I got hired into Verifi in 2017, and that was not my first attempt. I was rejected maybe in 2016. And I was like, okay, it didn't work out, right? But no hard feelings. Oh, no, you don't understand. So I reapplied maybe a year later, and that worked. So guys, again, please, if you got rejected, it's not the end of the world. You just need to try next time.
Yeah, especially too, like Yevgeny said, if it's a company that you are really interested in and you really want to get a chance to interview there, I agree. Don't give up. At the same time, too, I do want to give the advice of make sure you're applying to the right roles, too.
Yep.
I think that's the most important thing. I get a lot of people, let's just say, for example, I'm recruiting for an accounts receivable role. I get a lot of people who have an accounts payable background, right? A little bit different, right? Accounts payable versus accounts receivable. I think you probably say the same thing, like between somebody who just does manual QA versus somebody who's able to do some coding and actually test things on the back end and automate testing and things like that and develop a testing framework, right? Like I said, that's why my point is be purposeful in the positions that you are applying to. I know there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. There's a lot of noise out there, right? About, hey, I don't fit all the criteria. Should I still be applying? Look, I'm not going to tell anybody not to shoot their shot. That's totally up to you. But just know, if you only meet 70, 80% of the requirements, you're probably going to go up against people that are meeting 90, 95%, even 100% of the requirements too, right? So just keep that in mind so that you can set expectations with yourself, because the last thing you want to do is set yourself up for this disappointment, because it can be, job searching is frustrating, right?
It is. Oh, Brian, you actually brought interesting point. So about the requirements, you mentioned that if you, let's say your resume fits 60 to 70%, are you talking about like hard requirements must have, or can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, so it's usually broken down, right, between you're going to see the basic requirements and then the preferred. And the way that I look at it, and again, I'm just speaking from my own experience and from myself, there's plenty of other, I'm sure, views out there on this, right? But the way that I look at it is you really want to try to meet all of the basic requirements, right? If you can meet all of the basic and meet some of the preferred, even better, right? The preferred requirements, I see those as being more of, hey, if we had the opportunity to hire the perfect candidate, and I put quotes around that because I truly do believe there is no such thing as the perfect candidate, just like there's no such thing as the perfect person. We're all human, right? We're not perfect.
Totally.
Nothing's going to be perfect. But if you do, maybe you meet the basic and you don't meet the preferred, I would still apply because you meet the basic requirements. And that goes along with too, I know LinkedIn sometimes will show how many applicants applied to the jobs. And you could say, oh my gosh, I'm seeing 500 people already applied to this job. Do not let that discourage you. If you are interested in that job, apply to that job, because that doesn't necessarily mean 500 people apply. That number, from my understanding, also includes people who viewed it or partially applied. So it doesn't mean that 500 people actually applied. And Yevgeny, you're probably smiling because maybe you saw me post something about this on LinkedIn. I've been a little bit more vocal on LinkedIn about this stuff now, but that's one of the things that I would never. Same thing if you saw a position that's been posted for a while. Don't think, oh, I shouldn't apply for that. So I saw somebody post that was like, don't apply for positions that have been open for 3 months or more. I'm like, why would you ever give that advice? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why not? You like the job, you feel like you fit the job, apply for the job. It's very simple. My advice is don't overthink this stuff.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are overthinking it.
I usually say never assume.
Never assume. That's
assume.
the rule I go by.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Brian, let's move with the resumes. I think people are very curious about it.
They're ready.
And during the resume, we're gonna talk about more. And let's start with the first candidate. When I do a quick announcement, so please follow us in our platform. And I know that a lot of people wanted to review their resume, so please post your resume in our platform. We'll try to give a feedback by us as well, by myself and by another hiring managers and other folks as well. They can give you a feedback. Going through our platform, we will do the mock interview session with the hiring managers. Follow us there too. Are you able to see? Pretty good.
Yeah, I just need to, I'm going to move it to my bigger screen. So if it looks like I'm not looking straight at the camera, I'm looking at my bigger screen here, but yes, I can see it.
Maybe, I'm not sure who is this. Oh, I think it's Olga. Olga, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Olga, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit what positions you are targeting with this resume?
I'm targeting a position of QA engineer or senior QA engineer, and I'm looking for mostly mixed roles of manual and automation QA, but if it's 100% automation or 100% manual, it also works for me.
Sounds good. Oh, okay. We have 2 pages here. Nice. Location.
And if I could just chime in real quick, because I like you just saying, oh, the 2 pages, I'm sure folks probably have these questions in their minds. How long should my resume be?
Yep.
To be honest, like your resume is as long as it needs to be. As a recruiter, I'm probably, depending on your tenure at your positions, how long you've been there, I'm probably not looking past 5 to 7 years, because especially in technology, right? Every day tech is changing. So what might have been popular and used 5 to 10 years ago, probably not the case today. Yeah. So that's something I just wanted to throw out there. But I'm not one of those people that's going to sit here and tell somebody your resume should only be 1 page. I think it's really hard, to fit all of somebody's experience just on 1 page. And especially, I just don't feel it. It feels like it's boxing people in, and I wouldn't want to box anybody in. Right.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, I was trying to fit specifically into 2 pages, so it doesn't go over that.
For sure. The the biggest thing is to make sure that you are communicating your background, right, in a way that's easily digestible to a recruiter. And you have to also think about too, and this is for everybody, this is where I feel like it might be safe to assume, Yevgeny, safe to assume that the recruiter who's looking at your resume is not technical, right? At least not as technical as an engineer would be who would be looking at your resume, right? Or the hiring manager who knows this stuff. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're simplifying it in a way that's digestible for people who are non-technical and technical. And I think the way to do that is to really follow what I call the what and the how and the outcome. Okay. What did you do in this job? How did you do it? And what was the result? Okay. So for example, I see you were a senior QA engineer at I'm going to hopefully pronounce it, the Coterie. Okay. And so you're going to want to talk about what did you do there? How did you do it? And when it's technical, right? When it's an engineer, when you talk about the how, that's when you talk about what tools you use, what programming language did you use? And what was like the outcome of it? Were you successful in finding the bugs and writing some automation test cases, right? To test the back end to ensure that the application is working the way it needs to be working. And what was the result? Okay. So just dissecting what I'm seeing on your resume, you do look to touch on some of those things, right? The what you successfully, I'm just looking at the second bullet point, successfully created and implemented a test automation structure from scratch using the XQUI framework in Swift. To me, that is a beautiful bullet point because you're talking about what you did, how you did it. Now, maybe you can add like the result if it makes sense, right? Sometimes it might not always make sense to add in what was the result of it. I guess I think of it as like maybe more of if I'm talking with an engineer who developed maybe a shopping cart application and it increased revenue by X amount, right? Sometimes if it makes sense, if it is applicable. But that bullet point, I think, clearly shows that example or what I'm talking, or what the point I'm trying to make about the what, the how, and then again, optional whether to put the outcome if it makes sense.
Brian, and actually, here is my question as well. Not question. I would say I would share my thoughts. When I see like this adjectives like successfully created, it doesn't say a lot to me. What do you define by successfully? And I think what Brian meant is actually show the results that you define success for this implementation in test automation. So instead of telling me that it was successfully shown, how that was successful.
Right. Like, how did you know it was successful? Yevgeny, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
The reason for that verbiage is actually I didn't want to use like same boring words on every bullet point. I did that. I was responsible for that. And instead I was using different words, and that's where the successfully came up. Successfully means like it was working. So that's a success.
For sure. But to Yevgeny's point, Olga, in all honesty, and again, from a recruiter standpoint, if that word successfully wasn't there and you just started with created and implemented, I would still be just as happy with that bullet point. It wouldn't change it for me. You see what I'm saying? It wouldn't change it. I see what you're saying. You're trying to get a little bit more of that variety of action verbiage in there. But again, to Yevgeny's point, and just in my recruiting experience, that word successfully wouldn't change anything for me, except it might make me have more questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, like, I don't want to be picky. Like, it's not the end of the world, definitely, to see this type of words. But I think Brian just said exactly. It's more giving questions rather than the answers in these sentences. Right?
That's a good point. Thank you.
Also, in my opinion, like this type of stuff, communication, Slack, Zoom, it's very basic. You don't need to mention that either.
Yeah, I would agree, because all of these are communication tools that are going to come standard at any company, right? Like we use Microsoft Teams. I've used other chat stuff before. I think Cisco, when you were there, there was a Cisco one, right, Yevgeny? It was before we moved, it was another chat. I can't remember what it was, but
MetaMost, I believe.
Oh, on the technical side, yeah, you all probably use something that I didn't even touch. I was just saying for the company in general, I think we use it's similar to Microsoft Teams. But again, to Yevgeny's point, like that's something that you don't want to take the focus away from all the other stuff. And by adding in that piece, that line of with communication piece, like it's just one more thing that might take away from what you want them to be focusing on, like the programming languages you use, the QA tools, right? All that other stuff is way more important. Right?
Yeah. Brian, what do you think about this summary?
So I go back and forth on those things. I honestly think I think the summary could probably be a bit shorter. And I also think that, I don't know, I think it could be redundant, to be honest, because you're also going to be talking about that stuff in your experience. So unless there is some stuff on there that, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this, unless there's some stuff on there that maybe you're not putting under your experience with the different positions, like say maybe you had a position 10 years ago that's not on this resume, but you do want to highlight some sort of skill or something that you accomplished, then I can see that going in the summary. But I think you have to be careful with the summary to not sound too redundant in your resume.
You know, Brent, last time we defined that the more experienced the folk, like the person, the less summary it is.
Interesting. And it probably could be more of a confidence thing too. Like you said, they're more experienced, so maybe that just comes along with having, just again, speaking in very generalities here, could bring more confidence, so they feel more confident in their experience section, that they don't have to provide that summary section.
From your standpoint, Brian, when you look at the resume, on which part, especially the first glance, you would be looking into, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't spend too much time on the summary.
Yep.
Again, I just want to be very transparent in how I do it. I don't spend much time on the summary. What I actually do is, especially too, because most folks have the technical skills section, Olga, like you have, right? So I immediately go to the technical skills section. That's where I focus. My hope is that the way candidate applicants have listed their technical skills, for example, in the programming languages section, my hope is that they're starting with their strongest all the way to their not as strong. That's my hope. I don't know if everybody does that per se. That is my hope. But the biggest thing is that if I see something listed in your technical skills section, I want to see that listed in your experience.
That's the point that I was thinking too. That's the point.
Yep.
Right.
I want to be able to connect the dots.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that you make it easy on me to connect those dots. Because the easier you make it on me to connect those dots, then if it's easy for me to do it, and I'm not as technical as the interviewers and the hiring manager, you just made it very easy for them to connect.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, you used JavaScript and React as I see. How did you implement that? How did you use it in your experience? And
Right.
I don't see that much. But I see like Xcode there. So
In other roles. Yep. And also, what about, so for example, React, I just took a course and I like front-end development course and I built a website on React. So I didn't use it at my job, but this is something I know.
Okay.
Is it okay just to
So
like
maybe
include it
instead
there?
of having that summary section, you have a projects section to be able to show some of the other stuff you've done on your own, right?
totally. Yep.
Sounds good. And I have another question about domains. Should any information about actual projects that I was working with at a company be included there? Like some description, like fintech app or healthcare domain applications, something like that.
So that could come through when we talk about going back to what I was saying about the what and the how. I think you can figure out a way to incorporate that into your experience, right? Because if you're saying, let's just say, for example, going back to that second bullet point, right? Successfully created and implemented a test automation structure from scratch using the XQI framework in Swift to do what? To test a healthcare application or an e-commerce shopping cart or a production server, right? Like whatever it is, right? Again, help the reader connect those dots.
Got it. Thank you.
Great question, by the way.
All right. I think we can move forward. I think we gave pretty good.
And I just to pop in, I would say like anybody who has more questions or shoot me a connection on LinkedIn. Let's connect. When more than happy to continue to help you out for sure.
May I ask one last question, please?
Sure.
What about the formatting of the resume? Does it matter? What's the design of resume?
As long as it's not, as long as it's easy on the eyes. And I'll be honest, I think this is easy on the eyes. There's nothing crazy format about this. Your title was senior QA engineer. I can tell that again, I'm probably going to pronounce the company wrong. The Codier is the company. And then those were the dates that you were there. As long as you have that and it's pretty straightforward, and then you have the bullet points below of what you did there, to me, that's easy on the eyes, right?
Okay, thank you so much for your feedback. I made a lot of bullet points that I wrote down. Thank you.
Awesome. Great questions, Olga.
I totally agree with Brian. And especially like I've been several times asked by other recruiters, like, oh, Evgeny, we're not hiring. As long as the position for UI UX design, you don't need to worry about the design of your resume. It should be easy to read, easy to consume. This is the biggest, I would say, the biggest advice, like easy and very consumable. Don't need to be anything sophisticated in terms of, and again, like there's no wrong and right. If you use a designer to create your resume, it's fine, totally. But the content is more important. That's what I would say of the resume rather than the style.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we have a second resume and believe that was a project. Can you help us out? Like what kind of positions you are targeting with this resume?
Yeah. So like with this resume, I'm targeting roles primarily oriented towards development, engineering, and I'm even open to like data science positions because like I'm a pretty individual who's like inclined towards machine learning and data science as well. And my my previous stint was like working as a software engineer as well as a data scientist while I was working at Core Wireless. So it was pretty much with respect to the research and implementation of machine learning models, along with pretty much activities what a typical software engineer would do.
Awesome. Brian, do you want me to make it zoom in?
Yeah.
Sorry
You know,
for your eyes.
I'm getting older, Yevgeny.
My apologies.
I don't need glasses yet, but I guess we'll see what happens down the line. You see me squinting a little bit over here? Is that one? Yeah, I know. You read me pretty well. Awesome. And sorry, is it Prajay?
Yeah, that's right.
Prajay. Nice to meet you, Prajay. So yeah, I would say right off the bat, you can go either way with that relevant coursework, to be honest. I go back and forth on that. I think it depends. I think if you're somebody who might not have as much work experience, then maybe, yes, I would put that in there. But honestly, Prajay, you seem to have enough, in my opinion, right? You seem to have enough work experience where you might not necessarily need to put in that relevant coursework. Like, people are going to know what you're bringing to the table with your master's of science and computer science, right? In general, they're going to know what you're bringing to the table from your education. So again, totally up to you. Just my 2 cents on that. I would actually consider moving your skills section up top. And the reason for that is, and I go back to the previous resume, is that the way that I read these, it's okay, here are their skills. This is what they're telling me they have experience with. Now I want to see how they've applied that in their experience. As opposed to the way you have it set up, it's almost as if I got to scroll down to the bottom and then I got to scroll back up. So again, I think that could help. The other piece, the first bullet point, actually, I was looking at Core Wireless, and it sounds really good. Optimize the accuracy of support ticket categorization by 6% through BERT-based transfer learning to enhance decision-making for the customer support team. So how did you optimize the accuracy of the support ticket? What did you use to do that? So you're talking about the what, but you're missing the how piece. You have the what and you have the outcome, which is great. You're just missing that middle piece, right? And I think if you add that piece in there, that's going to make that bullet point even cooler than it already is.
Get it.
It's going to make it sound even better. Like, I go down to your third bullet point in that same job where you mentioned developed ML models, RESTful APIs, and Swagger documents using Fast API for seamless integration and visualization in Grafana. That you did great on with that what and the how, right? So again, connect the dots for the reader, right? Just looking at the next one or the next position at Dura Technologies. It's great that you listed like the product. Just looking at the first bullet point, architected and migrated legacy monolithic Spring MVC web app to a serverless microservice Spring Boot application using AWS Lambda, resulting in 30% reduced maintenance costs and improved fault tolerance. Again, what, how, and outcome, right? You nailed all three of those in that bullet point, okay? So I just think it's really important that you keep following that throughout your resume. And again, make sure that whatever you have in those skills sections, because remember, it's going to be fair game. If you get to that interview stage or even the screening stage with the recruiter, right? Anything you put on your resume, and this is for everybody, right? No matter what profession you're in or no matter, what job you're applying for. If you put that on your resume, it's fair game to be asked. So you got to be prepared to answer those questions, whatever you put on your resume, you got to be prepared to answer questions about it. Okay. That's across the board. And then as far as the projects go, yeah, I think it's good to have the projects on there to fill out the rest and show some of the other things that you've worked on maybe outside of a professional experience. But other than that, format looks good, easy on the eyes. I don't know, Yevgeny, if you have anything else, but that's all I got.
Honestly, I love this resume because, first of all, it is very concise and to the point, to the experience, and I can see that this person, you're a software engineer, primarily targeting for data science. But you mentioned that you're also looking for, you would be open for data science and machine learning, or?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much open to all. Looking at the current market scenario, so like I'm not like really negotiating at it, but then yeah, like I'm pretty much open to all of these three domains because like I bring like a decent amount of experience as well as pretty much hands-on projects.
Piece of advice, like it's better to create three targeting resume, like for machine learning separately, for data science separately, and for software engineer, web applications, for example, or backend. But that would be easier to differentiate yourself and help recruiters and hiring managers to find out your easier. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and again, this is be advice for everybody, right? And it's the way that I remember, way back when I was on my job search, or when I've thought about, making a move, right? And was updating my resume and stuff like that. I came up with a master resume, and that master resume had all of my experience on it. Now, this is not a resume that I sent out. This was my master resume so that when I applied to positions, I could easily customize, take this bullet point out, maybe add a little bit more to this bullet point because they're looking for this requirement, right? It gave me an easier way to apply, to be more specific in how I'm applying to these jobs. And so, Prajay, when you're talking about looking at some of these different positions, right, then I would say if it is maybe more data science focused or data engineer focused, right, or machine learning, then maybe I would leave that relevant coursework up there for those roles. But for a software engineer role, I don't think I would, because you have that experience from Door Technologies and Core Wireless that kind of shows me he's done the software engineering thing in a professional setting. But yeah, but that master resume, I'm telling you, has done wonders for a lot of people that I've talked to and that I've given this advice to, because again, it really helps them customize. It's an easy way to customize your resume to that, or tailor your resume to that specific job you're applying for.
Yep. Totally agree. And maybe for improvement, Prajay, you can help to find maybe more friendlier the font, because I believe it's a Times New Roman, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Times New Roman is 10 years old. But again, it's not the end of the world. I still like your resume as it is, because right now the content of this resume is more important than appearance. And this is important. So up to you.
Yeah,
sure.
these are just little tweaks.
Yep.
Little tweaks.
Get it. Gotcha.
But would totally agree with Yevgeny, Prajay. Overall, great looking resume. This is the type of resume that if it comes through to me, I'm like, I can connect all the dots here very easily.
Yeah,
which is great.
Definitely. And when the requirements are, let's say, for software engineer data science with, let's pretend, 3, 5, or 5, 7 years, and the requirements would be for, yeah, I think that resume perfectly fits. Unless if the hiring manager has some specific requirements, then even a good looking resume cannot help, unfortunately.
They want what they want, Yevgeny. We know that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's something that definitely you can do something about it, but there's also a lot of things that you cannot control, and it is what it is.
I think that's good advice and just for life.
True. Yep. It's a good advice. Yep. Totally. All right. Thank you, Prajay.
Thanks, Prajay.
Yeah, let's move with Michael Johnson. Send us this resume. Hey, Mike, are you here?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Can you walk us through a little bit, like what are the jobs that you are targeting? And I can see it's in QA domain.
Yeah, I am mainly looking at senior QA, lead QA manager.
Lead QA, senior QA, and QA manager.
Yep.
Okay. Let's look for a few seconds.
So I just in the first bullet point of the first experience section. Thank you, Yevgeny. You can tell me I'm squinting again. I appreciate you picking up on that. Funny enough, next time you'll see me break out the magnifying glass. So I think the first bullet point is great. The only thing I would say you're missing, it would be great to know what, when you say including testing new features, for what? For what's the application? I think just figuring out a way to weave that into that bullet point would be great. And then I think the other piece is maybe talking about any tools you use to do that. And I think that's what might be missing just from that bullet. If you can tweak that a little bit, I think that it would be really helpful, because you have the result, right? Resulting in 90% success rate of an on-time and error-free releases. And again, you tell me if I'm wrong about if it's just about actually doing the releases, maybe not necessarily for the application, then that's a whole nother thing. But again, I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that it is for an application that you were doing these weekly releases for and testing new features, identifying bugs, doing the code reviews in GitHub, right? That there was some sort of product or application that you were testing.
Yeah, that was a web-based application. And I guess with that first bullet point, I guess I was a little confused if I was throwing in too much of that, because that's almost like a full job summary in one bullet.
My suggestion would just be maybe saying you can maybe just say successfully managed and deployed weekly releases for web application, and just adding in for web application.
Okay.
But again, remember, the more specific you can, because me as a recruiter, and I'm going to be like, okay, cool, he did that for a web application, and now I'm like, what did that web application do?
Yeah, I can add more context to the type of product it was in the industry a little bit.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm the type of recruiter that even though I'm not an engineer, so I'm not as technical as the folks that I'm recruiting for, I do nerd out on this stuff, right? I get excited about it. I don't know if it's just the way I am, or I just love doing what I do, but I nerd out on this stuff and I get excited about it. So that's why I'm like, oh, cool. I wonder what that web application did. So I'm sitting here asking myself, wow, man, I wonder what it did. But it'd be cool to just have that piece in there, and not the less the reader has to wonder. I always feel like in general, the better.
Yep.
I'm just reading through some of the others.
The structure, though, I like it.
Yeah.
Short summary, very to the point.
Easy on the eyes. For
Easy
sure.
on the eyes for sure. Yeah. The only maybe, I don't know, the last sentence, I'm excited to take a long-term position with a dynamic team to take a challenging projects. I think it's a little bit unnecessarily, but it's also not critical though.
Yeah. Again, I think some of this stuff is personal choice, right? As far as like, or style, I would say. A lot of people like to introduce what they're looking for, right? So it's clear, right? Trying to just give a quick snapshot of who you are, right? But yeah, I would agree. I think it can be presumed, I won't say assume, but presume that you are going to be excited to take on a long-term position with a dynamic team and be challenged. So again, like Yevgeny said, up to you if you want to keep that in. I don't think your resume will lose anything if you took that out.
Totally.
I still think you get your point across about your background. But the flow, I think the flow is there for sure. You got your summary, you got your skills. Again, I'm really big at the skills being up top. So I can say, okay, this person's got, for example, say I'm looking for, again, a Java engineer, right? I'm going to want to see right off the bat in programming skills, Java listed, right? So for example, I'm looking for somebody that has experience with Selenium, Postman, right? Those are some of the technical skills that I'm looking for. I like that it's there right off the bat. And now I'm going to wonder and say, hey, okay, cool. Where did he use these? Then I look at your second experience, your second company on the resume and see led automation efforts by creating tests using Selenium IDE. Honestly, I would probably put that bullet point closer to the top of that, because and I want to reiterate this point that I think like it's the technical stuff that people really want to know, right? Because that's really the crux of the job. If I'm a hiring manager, directed all QA responsibilities as the company's first technical hire, and implemented an end-to-end testing process for healthcare enterprise software, that's a good statement. I think you could probably cut it just to the implemented an end-to-end testing process for healthcare enterprise software and directing all QA responsibilities, fostering a strong agile culture. So I think you can tweak it, but that's what's going to stand out. More of that technical stuff is what's really going to stand out and is what's going to catch people's attention.
True.
Because somebody's looking for somebody to come in and end-to-end test their software.
Yep.
That's going to be the most, or looking for somebody to come in and implement a testing framework or process.
Yep. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. But again, overall, I think with a few tweaks, Mike, and sorry, do you go by Mike or Michael?
I actually get a lot of MJ since there's always
Cool. Got it. We'll go with MJ. But MJ, like I said, I think just with a few tweaks here and there based on what Yevgeny and I said, other than that, overall, solid.
Great. Yeah, I really appreciate the feedback. Referring to the first resume, you said don't use successfully. Would you agree with that for my first bullet point as well?
Yeah, because you already have 90% success rate, right? You show the results. So again, up to you. Style, personal preference. Since you asked, I think it's necessary because you already have it listed as you have the results. And 90% success rate sounds pretty successful to me.
Yeah.
If I'm going back to school, 90% is an A. So that's good.
And for the skill section, do you think there's anything I need to take out of there?
I think Microsoft Office suggests you this thing is unnecessary. Maybe, I don't know, Slack. Stripe though, like it depends how did you use it. If you use like as a user, it's another story, but I believe you've been using Stripe dashboard like for development,
Yeah,
then you want to specify this.
I used it for verifying payments.
Yeah. So maybe Stripe, I don't know, you need to specify a little bit more.
Yeah.
But nothing crazy here. Good job.
And sorry, real quick, one more and I would just say, like, with the technical piece, I don't know, did you list it in order based on your proficiency with it?
Yeah, I would say it's in order from what I've used the most.
Okay. Fair. Totally fair. I know some folks will do alphabetical order, which obviously I know that's not the case here. But that I was just curious if I know a lot of folks will do it based on their on proficiency. So that totally makes sense. I would say though, maybe if you could maybe break that up a little bit more to code repos or test frameworks or databases or continuous integration tools with Jenkins, testing tools, which if you want to, could break that up a little bit more. Same thing with the business tools, like for bug tracking, you've used Jira. For any business intelligence stuff or data, I know it's Tableau, right? So again, just something to think about if you wanted to break it up a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I used to have my technical skills as kind of just QA skills and then mobile QA skills. But then I was getting to the point where I was trying to remove some rows so I can just fit everything in one.
Well, you don't necessarily need to break it up versus mobile versus web, in my opinion. Testing tools are testing tools, right? So if you use if you're using that tool to test a mobile application or a web application, like whatever, you're still using it to test an application. It's just depends on what the type of application is. But I think you covered that in your operating systems, right?
Mhm.
And that of the OS of the operating systems that you have experience with.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Just one more advice, MJ. If you're able to get more technical skills here, that would be increases your chances for sure. Because I don't see any programming languages, and I'm not sure if you did some or have any experience, but that's something that potential hiring managers are also looking.
Yeah.
Even for managerial positions, that you would be able to at least, I don't know, maybe you should be able to do code reviews or establish the processes for this. But overall, looks good.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off that real quick, Yevgeny. So yeah, MJ, I totally agree with what Yevgeny's saying, and especially too, if you're putting in that you're conducting code reviews in GitHub, I think there could be an assumption that you do know how to read and write code, right? So you may just want to like flesh that out a little bit more. Yevgeny was saying, if there are, and you can be specific, you can, there are folks that can read code but not write code, right? I mean, that's not uncommon. So you just can be specific about that, right? But yeah, I would definitely think if there are any programming languages, you're probably going to want to put those in there, because especially now what I'm seeing with QA engineer roles is they're going to be looking for people that know their way around code.
Yep. Agree. All right. Thank you, MJ.
Thanks, MJ.
Let's move with the fourth one. And that's going to be, hold on. Aaron, are you with us? Still here? Yes, no?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Yeah, I re-updated my resume because I added name. I don't know if it's really need to. It's pretty much the same thing. Just to add the layout changes just a tiny bit.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Yevgeny.
Sorry. So you're looking for a test engineer position, right?
Mid-level testing engineering positions. Yep.
So I would say right off the bat, Aaron, I would move more of the technical experience at Bank of America to the. If you look at when you were at, and I know this might be a formatting thing with EY, because obviously you want to move that to its own line because it looks like it's
Yeah, that's
kind of
why.
yeah, it just might be for the way it got formatted, but I'm sure you'll fix that. But the way that you have it at EY, I would say that's how you're going to want to have it at Bank of America. So when you're talking about analyze test cases to identify the scenario, it's the fourth bullet point under Bank of America. Analyze test cases to identify the scenarios that can be automated using Selenium WebDriver with Java. As a recruiter, I want to see that bullet point right off the bat. That's the first thing I would want to read, because then that tells me, okay, Aaron's got experience, right? And we're gonna find out how much experience, right? But Aaron's got experience with Selenium WebDriver with Java, right? Like, we're a Java shop. If we were hiring a software develop an SDET, right? Software development and test, like, that's what I would be looking for, right? I think that's what's going to really stand. That's what's going to stand out to recruiters, hiring managers, folks that are interviewing you, technical folks that are interviewing you, right? Same thing with, and then right after that, I would be putting in that executed SQL queries to perform backend testing. I would then put in that the acknowledge the CI/CD implementation. I guess when you say you acknowledged it, what do you mean by that?
Just that, I guess I didn't word it as efficiently as I could. I just wanted to put in my resume that I have CI/CD experience working on an agile team using the Jenkins tool.
Yeah, I honestly think you can take that out and just say utilize Jenkins tool for executing smoke and regression testing on virtual servers with Selenium grid tool. I don't think you need that first part.
Got it.
Because anyone technical reading that should know Jenkins is a CI/CD tool, hopefully. And then some of the other, and then created and maintained automated test scripts for API testing for web services. So again, that stuff I mentioned, that should be towards the top, and the other stuff I think you can put more towards, like, more of the business stuff towards the bottom.
So all the technical stuff first.
Yeah, because like you have, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
I was just repeating what you were saying.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And because just like I said, like you did at EY, right, at Ernst Young, created, maintain automated test scripts for API testing using Java, Cucumber, Rest Assured library. I'm going to read that. I just got chills, right? This is what I told you, how I nerd out about this stuff. Like, that's the type of stuff. If I'm recruiting for an SDET role and I'm a Java shop and we're looking for folks who are testing or who are going to do API testing, like, I'm reaching out to you and saying, hey, Aaron, let's have a conversation. And then the only thing I would mention is it's up to you if you want to move the skills stuff to the top, like we've talked about before.
Got it. I have a question regarding the 2-page versus 1-page resume. Is it better to have 2 pages beat the ATS resume system, whatever? I think that's what it's called, the ATS system.
Right. The applicant tracking system is what holds all the data.
And keeping that in mind, would you recommend having as much keywords as possible and adding a second page so I could beat that system?
I feel like I know where this is going.
Can you beat the ATS? Right?
Yeah, getting, man. If we could only just pick the lottery numbers, like, we'd be good to go. But yes. So I'm glad you brought this up, Aaron, because I want to tell everybody this. And Yevgeny's probably seen me all over LinkedIn commenting on people, and I get trolled about it a little bit too. It happens, but there is no beating the ATS. There's no such thing, right? Yes, like, the key word piece is be honest with you. The way that I have our, and again, I can only speak for myself and the way that our ATS is set up. I do not pay any attention to the ratings that are given that our ATS gives a candidate. I don't pay any attention to it because it does not mean anything to me. I've looked at folks that have a high rating, they're not a fit for the job because maybe the rating gives them a higher rating because they're closer to the office. But that has nothing to do with their skill set. So I feel like when you put in your skills, you have that skills section. If you're worried about the key words, like I said, hiring for a software test engineer who is experienced with Selenium WebDriver, and can program in Java. What other keywords do you need to put? Again, I understand what you're saying. You're not always going to run into recruiters like myself. I get it. More often than not, you're probably dealing with someone who's sourcing somebody who might not be as experienced. But trust me when I tell you, if they're looking for a software test engineer that uses Selenium testing tools, right, or Cucumber, and can program in Java, in my mind, there'd be no reason why they wouldn't reach out to you and have a further conversation about your experience. Yeah, Evgeny, I don't know if you had anything to add on that, but again, I'll reiterate, there's no ATS bots, I promise.
Totally. I 100% agree with Brian. I think it's a myth. Okay, even if some recruiters or some companies, they're using ATS and they would filter you out. But if it's a bunch of keywords in your resume without making sense, the chances that your resume will be dropped pretty high.
Right. Look, you might get a conversation scheduled with the recruiter, but it's not going to go past that.
Yeah.
So you're going to have you'll have a lot of recruiter conversations, but that's not what you want. You want to have the recruiter say, hey, great, I'm going to get your background over to the hiring manager for review. That's what you want.
So also, yeah, I 100% agree with Brian. So whatever you have here, and you have pretty good keywords here in the skills section. And I like that they are most like relevant, and there's no common tools that you don't need to put it there. All of them, they looks pretty solid. You just need to show them how did you use it here in your experience. More like,
Okay.
walk us through how and what did you do there. But honestly, like in terms of formatting, dude, you need to change your resume. It looks like 10 years old or maybe even more than that. I know that, and just Brian just mentioned that maybe it was the formatting issue, but it's very hard for eyes. You see the font, the Times New Roman with cursive font.
Yeah, the italics.
Italics, yes, italics. Summary also. I don't know. It's hard to read. Why you emphasize solid principles? I'm not sure. There's in terms of, I feel from your resume that you have experience. You just need to wrap it up nicely, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But I feel that you have experience just based on these two companies, and you've been using Java, and again, like,
Yeah, because again, the summary piece as a recruiter, right? Again, just speaking as a recruiter, I do look at it, but it's not my focus. It's not my focus at all. The focus is the skills section, and then, okay, he says he's got the skills that we're looking for. Where did he use these skills, and how did he use them? And how does it all come together?
I
Right.
got it. Solid principles of coding. So this is the okay.
I figured it was a term,
acronym.
Yevgeny,
Yeah,
but
it's
I've
term.
never heard of it. So I learned something new today, which is great.
Me too. Me too. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for pointing out. I would know. I would know. What else? Yeah, and be consistent. Like here you have Java with one capital, here's with the all caps Java.
Good point.
Eh.
Yeah, you want to be consistent all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, like just format, make it nicely to consume, to read,
Yeah.
and make a little bit more story of your technologies that you've been using in your experience by showing us, walk us through, show in the story.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a little spacing will go a long way.
Yep. Yep.
A little spacing will go a long way and make it a bit easier on the eyes for sure.
Like spacing between the bullet points.
Yeah. And we're not talking like a full space, just a little bit more just to,
Okay.
yeah. Because again, it does look a bit scrunched and compressed. So I think if you give it a little bit of spacing, it gives the eyes a little bit of breathing room with your bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, other than that, overall, the content is there for sure. Again, I just think you need to move the technical stuff or the Bank of America stuff up top.
Got it. Thank you.
No, thanks,
thank you.
Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, guys, today was a pretty intense session. Oh, Muslim. Unfortunately, we running out of the time. We have 3 minutes to the end. And we're gonna do this next time. We do this pretty consistently, twice a month. Follow us also on a meetup. We also have a live meetup in Orange County, California. So guys, join us. But Brian, thank you very much for participating today.
My honor was all mine, Yevgeny. I appreciate the invite. I appreciate everybody allowing me to come and share my perspective. Hopefully y'all can tell that I'm passionate about this space, the recruiting space that I'm in and this profession. And I believe in treating people with the utmost respect and communicating. And again, I'm sure y'all have had your fair share of experiences with recruiters. And hopefully today I was able to, if they haven't been so positive, hopefully today I was able to show that there are some good ones out there like myself, right?
There are.
And Yevgeny, of course, right? He's jumped into the recruiting game too, which it's been exciting for me to see. But yeah, like I said, I'm very humbled by this experience and being able to share my knowledge with folks. And again, I'm on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to shoot me a connection. Follow me. You might see some interesting posts that I make on these topics. And yeah, I just really appreciate it, Yevgeny. Thank you.
Before Brian goes, let's maybe meet together again because we have so many questions from participants. And I, in particular, also very interested in negotiations and with the offers, with the salary.
Yeah,
I believe you can give great tips and hints in this topic.
absolutely.
So,
and there is somebody real quick that I want to plug who does a lot of videos for job seekers. Her name is Amy Miller. I'll put her name in the chat, but I would recommend, I just connected with her not too long, a couple months ago. And she's been doing recruiting for over 20 years. And she has all these videos that she posts, and they're not long. They're like 12-minute videos on YouTube. And I definitely recommend following her. And she is super helpful and just with her knowledge. And a lot of the stuff that you hear me say has come from her. And so when you mentioned the negotiations and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure she's got a video on that too. But I am more than happy to come back and talk anything recruiting that. And yeah, just educate and answer questions for sure, Yevgeny. Anytime, you let me know.
I will definitely will. Thank you very much, Brian.
Fantastic.
And guys, thank you for participating. Sorry for those who we won't be able to cover resumes who was on the line, but come join us next time. We're gonna do this more often. So anyway, guys, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Yevgeny. Great to meet y'all.
Great to meet you. Bye-bye.
Best of luck. Bye-bye.